Hey everyone, I'm Alex. Welcome to part one of the Autodesk Inventor home screen user interface tutorial module, where we'll be taking a look at the top toolbar and file tab. I broke this series down into easily digestible segments to deliver you the most relevant content for your convenience. So if this video doesn't contain what you're looking for, go ahead and check out the other parts to this module. If you want to stay up to date on future tutorials like this one, or fun engineering projects and other cool stuff, make sure you subscribe and turn on channel notifications. In this tutorial, we're going to start with the top left corner of the screen, and we're going to work our way down into the right. So with that said, at the top left, we see the Autodesk Inventor icon in the shape of an eye. This gives us some control over the application window itself. So when we click on this, we get some options here. We get restore, minimize, close, and some other grayed out options. So if we were to click restore, it would actually shrink the window. We could actually maximize the window from here, clicking the maximize button, or we could go up here to the top right corner of the window. So we're just going to go ahead and use this. The other options are self-explanatory, and you can play around with those as you wish. The next option here is the new button. You'll notice that there's a little drop-down arrow here. If we click that, it gives us some basic options for opening a new window. So it gives us assembly, drawing, part, and presentation. We could actually go ahead and click this to launch the relevant workspace, but we're going to hold off on that for now. And we're going to actually click on the new icon itself. So when we click new, it brings up this new dialog box titled Create New File. We get some options here, so let's just sort of step through and see what we've got. We have our templates folder. If we click on that, we don't see anything in here. Obviously, we have more stuff housed in it. Let's step through those. So if we go into ENUS, we get some options for some different types of files. So we get our part files, assembly, drawing, and presentation. Let's take a step further and start out with the English folder. This gives us an additional option for mold design here, but let's go ahead and start with part. So the differences in these folders is it gives you some different options for part files with reference to the units that you're using. So we're using English units here, hence the English title on the folder. Starting with the top, we could create a part file. This takes the form of either a sheet metal variant or a standard part file. So the standard part file is what you would use if you're just creating a normal 3D model. So that would give you extrudes, or if you're a CATIA user, it would be called a pad, and all of those other basic functions that you're probably familiar with or have seen elsewhere. Stepping down, we have our assembly options. So our assembly options, we can click on these and you'll notice it gives us a brief description on the bottom right-hand side. If you are away from your computer with this tutorial video, or you just need a refresher on what each of these are, it's sort of nice because Autodesk Inventor gives you a brief description of what these are. Our first option is mold design. This is it for those creating an injection mold design for your injection molded parts. Super handy utility if you're in the manufacturing space. Stepping over, we have our standard assembly. So this would be your standard assembly file that you would be using to create your sub-assemblies, your main assemblies, whatever that you're doing with your project at that time. Then we have our weldment. So this is creating an assembly joined by welding. So if you're dealing with welded parts such as frame structures or anything of that variety, this is where you'd want to work. Moving down, we have our drawing section. In our drawing section, we have two options here. And this is something that comes up quite a bit on online forums with regards to the difference between both files. So our first one is our ANSI.dwg file. And then our next one is our ANSI.idw file. So what an IDW file is the Inventor drawing file format that was originally with the Autodesk Inventor software back when it first came out. Originally, Autodesk Inventor would not be able to read DWG files or open those files in the beginning. However, over time, they've actually added that functionality so you can now open .dwg files and vice versa with other programs. Moving over, we have our DWG file. This is a file format that is common with AutoCAD. This is nice to be able to start a file in this format, because when you start a file in this format, you can actually open these files in AutoCAD and make some edits to the dimensions and stuff themselves. It will not change the model dimensions. Those, to do that, you'll either have to break the link to the model or save the file as something else in AutoCAD so that you can edit the geometry itself. But this is really useful for keeping a nice compatible environment with other teams. So 9 times out of 10, you'll probably want to do your 2D engineering drawing files in this format here. And then lastly, we have our presentation section. The presentation section is useful for animations, exploded views, and things of that nature. This is very useful if you're doing, let's say, a work instruction in a manufacturing environment. So maybe you want to do an exploded view and have step-by-step assembly instructions. You can actually do that here. And this is very valuable. This accelerates the amount of time it takes to create work instructions. You don't have to create separate models to show various steps in the assembly process. You can animate all of this, and it's really useful. Moving down on the left side here, we get to our metric section. These options are the same as the English section. We just have different standards within each subsection. So you can see those here depending on where you're located geographically, what type of standards you're adhering to within your industry. You can explore all of these options and choose the relevant one for you. And then lastly, we have our mold design. This just gets back to our basic mold design utility that we saw in the other windows. This folder just separates it from the other options. Let's see, on the bottom left here, we have our help launcher button. So if you click this, it'll take you to the Autodesk help page on the internet. Moving over, we see a box called project file. Now I'll go into depth on project files shortly here, but essentially what this is it subdivides your, like it says, your project into separate places, and it allows you quick access to those workspaces and projects individually. And I'll show you how to do that here. The next button actually launches your project dialog box where you can create new projects, edit projects, and move stuff around, rename files, whatever you need to do. And then, of course, your create button actually launches the type of file. For me, I typically use English units. I would, let's say, make a 3D part in the standard part utility here and click create. That would launch the part creator there. Next is cancel. And at the top right is your view drop-down box. So I can change how these tiles show up here. So if I choose extra large icons, it gives me extra large icons, and so on and so forth. We can see these different options in various ways depending on your preferences. So we're going to go ahead and click cancel here. And then moving back up to the top, we have our open command. This is pretty self-explanatory. You click open, you could search through your file directory. You see your workspace, which is basically where your project directs your file explorer to view your models, drawings, whatever you have in there that's relevant to that particular design effort. Moving over, we have our home icon. This is really useful. So let's say, for example, we're in a separate part file. You can always come up to the top here and click home, and it'll take you back to the screen. So you could quickly navigate between various part assemblies, drawings, whatever you're doing, but you could always have a quick way to get back to the home screen here, which is super useful. And then lastly on this line is just your customization of your quick access toolbar. So let's say we want to see a projects option here. It will add that to your screen up here at the top. Let's say we don't really need a save button here because we're not really saving anything on this screen. We can take that away, but we're going to take everything back to default there. Moving over to the right, we have our minimization arrow, which just basically collapses the search, help, and command bar. We're going to open that back up because that's pretty useful at times. Over here is your account information drop-down tab. So this allows you to sign out, see your account details, manage your license, so on and so forth. We have a little app store icon here. So this is so you can purchase various Autodesk plugins and other apps that work with the software suite. And then lastly, you have your little help button here, again, to access the Autodesk help menu. Moving over, we have our file tab. Now, this is pretty common in most Windows applications. So if we click the File tab, we see our basic options here. New, again, it takes you back to your basic list of options here for starting a part, presentation, so on and so forth. You could see that from here as well. So we'll go back to File. Open, you can open various file types. You can share views and such, but this is really useful if you're collaborating with suppliers or a customer. So say, for example, you have a part that you need the surface finish or the color selection approved by your customer. This is a great way to share some views with them. They'll be able to rotate it, zoom in and out, but they won't actually be changing the file. So this is very useful. It won't disturb any of your geometry or any of the data that you've assigned to this model. Manage allows us to create or edit projects and work through each of these drop downs here. There's a brief description provided under these, so I'm not going to go too in depth there. And that concludes this segment of the Autodesk Inventor Home Screen User Interface tutorial module. I hope this helped you obtain a better understanding of the home screen and its user interface. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to stay up to date on future content as it's released. And of course, don't hesitate to reach out and let me know if there's anything else you'd like to learn about or see on this channel. Thanks for watching.